Welcome to the regularly scheduled board meeting, February 6, 2024. Kathleen, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Dear Lord, thank you for all you do for all of us, for all that you've given us. Please bless our city and our deliberations tonight. And let's say together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
We'll stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item on the agenda is open forum. We have one open forum. Ms. Grace Garrigan, please.
Hi. I wrote stuff down so I don't go over. Hi, my name's Grace Garrigan. I live at 919 Logansport Street. Last night I was at Brad's ward meeting, which was very well attended. And he spoke passionately about his success with changing the profile of infrastructure that Vexus was putting in front of homes. And he talked about the value of simply asking for things we want to change and how powerful that can be. And well, I feel passionately about my family's safety, and a huge concern of ours is our streets. So my husband and I we chose to move back to Nacogdoches after growing up here when a house became available in one of the more walkable parts of town. And it's a beautiful part of town. We're Kathleen's neighbors. It's wonderful. We wanted to be near trail access, downtown, nearby parks. We even spent the night in the parking lot of the Methodist Church to secure our daughter a spot at a school within walking and biking distance to our home. And we either walk or bike her every day. My husband even does it when it's pouring rain. And every day it feels like we're risking our safety and our children's safety just trying to get to and from school. I think there's many ways we could retrofit our streets to make them safer for pedestrians and cyclists. I think that we should consider those things when we talk about the bond money that's been allocated for streets, not just sidewalks. I'm a huge advocate for sidewalks, and I know we just passed a $1.4 million bond for them, but I also know that won't go far with the cost of things today. But there's many things we could do as a city to protect pedestrians at a low cost. We could stripe crosswalks, we could add speed tables, we could educate drivers on pedestrian right-of-way, add signage, and many others. I wanted to let you guys know that I'm working with a group of other local walkability advocates to try and work with the city and help Nacogdoches become a more walkable and safer community for everyone, not just cars, although I do think that if we can create complete streets for everyone, that will also help drivers. It'll help protect pedestrians from becoming victims and drivers from becoming perpetrators. My family walk and bike every day because it's of the proven health benefits and because we like to, but many people in our city don't have another option. This group is going to try to reach out to those people and figure out where our highest needs are and make our streets safer for everyone. The group is called Walkable Nacogdoches. We're on Facebook if you want to follow along.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll get into the consent agenda. Items to be removed. Pardon me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Closed public forum.
Oh. Closed public forum? Or open forum?
Open
Okay. It's closed. That was the only one I had. Okay. Consent agenda, any items to be removed?
Hearing no items to be removed, Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Go to the regular agenda. Item 6A, consider approval of a contract between the City of Nacogdoches and McKinney and Moore of Texas for the WWTP bar screen rehabilitation project for a not-to-exceed amount of $114,000.
Here's a slide. Mayor, City Council, Case Opperman, Director of Public Works and City Engineer. If you'll remember, back in August of last year, we brought you a purchase of a bar screen configuration that we needed to buy as soon as possible at that time because the lead time was about 6 months. Y'all graciously agreed to fund that, and we bought it, and it's a week or two away from getting here, finally. And so we, on January 25th, took bids to actually install this equipment that we bought last year. We received 4 bids, the lowest being from McKinney and Moore of Texas, in the amount of $114,040. They are doing several projects for us currently, including the clarifier rehabilitation out at the same wastewater treatment plant at this time. And so we feel like that was one of the reasons why they were able to give us such a good price on it, and we are happy with the work they've done with us so far, and we recommend awarding them this contract as well. So be happy to answer any questions after public comment.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Discussion? Is this in budget? Is this what we had?
Yes, sir. We actually have $176,000 for this installation.
Okay, good.
So we're well within budget on this item.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract as stated in item 6A.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Case. Item 6B, receive presentations and hold discussions regarding the low-income housing tax credit program, applications and requests for support.
Council members, I do not have a presentation for you tonight. You received all of your information from me last week in a very helpful workshop, I think, that we held. I have invited all of the developers who have requested support from you tonight to come up and speak. We'd ask that they keep their presentations to about 5 minutes. I do think that there is one PDF PowerPoint that we'd need to load for them, but I would just suggest calling them up project by project. And then following that, the next agenda item would be for resolutions, and I'm happy to explain those resolutions at that time.
Okay. We'll just move on to 6C, right? Okay, all right, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, is there a representative from Pine Creek Senior Village? Okay.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Russ Michaels. I represent Pine Creek Senior Village. I'm also the executive director of Texas Interfaith Housing. I've been here before. I've been here, I think, the last couple of years now, presenting on another one of the developments you'll see tonight, which is Red Brook Senior Village. So we have one development up in the northeast ward. We have one down in the southeast ward. And this one is down in the southeast. So Pine Creek Senior Village, I could probably put them both together and talk a little bit about them together to save you some time. But they're essentially the same type of product. They're coming in at up to 60 units in terms of the affordable housing tax credit cycle and the application. They're both age restricted. They're both senior developments. And quite frankly, the reason we have both of them coming to you tonight or this year is because there's a scoring difference between the two of them. One of them scores just slightly higher than the other. That keeps a lot of these developments in competition in this round with a city like Lufkin, which is really the primary competitor for these tax credits every year. So we chose two different locations. We love the one down on the southeast side too, just like we love the one up on the north part that we've brought to you in the last couple of years. One of the reasons we like this location, and they're both zoned the same, so they both have the same qualifications there. This one is a little bit more quieter. It's tucked away down on the southeast part of town, going out on Main Street. And a lot of times the seniors and the elderly that live there love those close-knit communities, those quieter communities. So you got a lot of great opportunity there with this particular development and that particular site. This is the one that scores high enough, I think, to compete better with Lufkin. However, I could get into some of that here in a second too in terms of competition. The other one, Ridgebrook Senior Village, just to save some time, it's probably coming up next or in the next part of your agenda item. It's where it's been in the last couple years, north, up just north of Maroney Park and Maroney Drive, just north of there. Again, this one is a lovely piece of property that we really like. We've loved looking at it from a design perspective every year. It's got a beautiful view of the sunset. Again, it's a small development, very low impact. But again, it's age restricted and it's a senior development for independent seniors. So I'm going to stop there outside of just saying a little bit about Interfaith and the fact that we're a nonprofit. We pay property taxes, we bring in social services, and we're really about building up people's lives, not just building up homes. We're here with you the whole time. We long-term own these properties. We manage them. We bring in the social services. We develop and construct them. And we're from the state of Texas, so we're not necessarily from out of state. Not that that makes a big difference, but I think when you come into a smaller town or any town, you definitely want to build a collaboration and connection with the community. And we've been here doing this a couple of years now, and we'd love your support tonight. So hope that kept it slight. Any questions for me at all?
When you said long-term, sorry. When you said long-term, what do you mean? How long-term is it?
Yeah, the affordability component for these properties lasts anywhere from 45 to 55 years, so that's going to run with the property. So if something actually gets a land use restriction, a LURA put on it, it's got to be affordable for that long. As a nonprofit, we have a right of first refusal typically in our partnership agreements, where we, at 15 years after the credits run out, we typically will go in and take over the partnership and long-term hold it for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So we typically hold our properties for the length of the affordability process. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, about 50 years is long-term.
So of all your other properties, have you owned them 50 years or how long?
Yeah, a lot of them have been in our portfolio since the 70s and 60s. We've been around in Houston since 1966. The new construction properties that we're developing right now, the newer ones like this one, we're in that 5-year, 10-year, 15-year range, but we still own them.
Thanks.
What materials do you use to build? That was a question that came up.
Yeah, masonry, stucco. If we can, we're using brick, we're using limestone. We're trying to blend with the actual area that we're in. So that's the Class A style luxury apartment complex is really the kind of material that we use. So you're going to see stainless steel appliances, hardwood flooring, a lot of the amenities that you'd associate with a Class A luxury apartment complex, pools, things like that. But on the exterior, yeah, it's you've got landscaping plans to code, a lot of trees when you can, a lot of local brush and things from the area. And we try to keep the trees, that are there and use the materials like stucco, masonry, brick, stone, things of that nature too.
Do you hire locally, or do you, how will that work?
Yeah. Right now with construction costs, I can tell you right now, you want to find as many local subcontractors as you can. You don't want people driving up from, say, I don't know, Houston or Austin or whatever, In fact, there's too much work down there for them anyways, and so you're really sourcing local subcontractors, and that's our intention. And usually you'll see about 3 or 4 permanent jobs that come into the property, management, maintenance, things like that. But in terms of the impact for construction through that 18-month construction period, we'll probably hire anywhere from 40 or 50 folks, subcontractors, folks that are electrical, plumbers, things like that.
And you'll have somebody on site management, is that?
That's right. And to your colleague's point, not just long-term owning, but long-term managing. So Interfaith manages the property. So we're not a third-party management company. So when we own it and build it and develop it, we also own it and manage it as well, with resident services too coming in as a part of our portfolio resident services side.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
The type of material you use, and you mentioned stucco, et cetera. There's some that have an issue with hardy board,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if it's because doesn't fit in with the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big difference in the cost, and not so much as difference in the quality. But hardy is much cheaper to install than brick and masonry because you got product and you got a lot of labor costs. Does the difference in that makes what, like the long-term rental agreement, does that make a difference in what that cost goes to the tenants?
Yeah, I think I'm understanding what you're asking, and I should mention this. There's only so many credits in this region to build and get equity. And so what you're looking for really is you're looking for a development that can come in and use the 1.5 or 1.7 million credits you can get and stretch those out and turn it into maybe 10 million or 15 million in equity to build something that's $20 million. So if you can get the most credits for this and the right equity pricing, and you can have that pro forma that's got the right interest rate and everything with your perm debt, then you can typically build with brick and the masonry I mentioned and with the stucco, and you don't have to use the hardy board, the plank, things like that. And you can try to build more in line with your community and what you have out there. That's what we have modeled right now, and we believe it'll work. And it does have a big impact on the longevity of your property in terms of how it looks on the exterior. I think the other piece too that's important is that social services and resident services, which every developer provides, but we do it actually for a living. Okay, we've got the largest resident service provider in the state of Texas. We have about 160,000 tenants that we impact from coast to coast. But if you empower people's lives, that means you empower how they live there and also how they take care of things. And when you have your own management company, it's key too, because you're engaging with the community and you're engaging with your residents, and that has a long-term effect on the property's value. I hope that answered most of your question.
Because, I mean, I was looking at the pros and cons of brick, masonry versus hardy.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much difference in, say, the quality of the products, but the long-term quality results as far as mold resistant, fire resistant, low maintenance for one thing, which was little or no maintenance, backed by 30-year limited warranty as on the product itself, and that doesn't tell how long it will last.
Yeah, right. I will say this too, we put a lot of effort and energy and time in our properties just by long-term holding them, and we are a plush nonprofit. We have the money to take care of things, and we do that. In fact, the developer, one thing about a nonprofit is that you do have a lot of developer fee that comes into these deals. We pump a lot of that back into the property and the community itself. So we're not looking to make a lot of money on these things. We're trying to have impact with our properties and our residents. That's been our long-term mission since we started in the 60s.
I was only trying to say is, I wouldn't have an issue with hardy.
Okay, gotcha. Noted. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
What does the apartment cost? I mean, the low income,
The rents?
yeah.
Yeah. Typically out here in this county, you're using area median income for this particular county. And then, of course, you're trying to get it attainable for folks and their margins, because their margins can be, the price of gas goes up, milk goes up, everybody knows that. You're looking at rent probably for a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom in these senior developments that ranges anywhere based on their income from probably about $400 to $800 a month, okay? It could be lower, $375, in the 30% area median income range, but when you get up to 50 and 60% and people are qualifying for that, it's gonna be up in that range where it's probably $600-700 a month. That could be for a one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and it all depends on, their income, right?
So is there any preference given to a person that perhaps makes closer to the low-income threshold than a person who really would pay you a lot of less money, $300 versus $800?
There's no preference. In fact, you have a unit mix that's pretty much capped at that. So you have a certain amount of units of the 60, up to 60, that are
Okay.
set for 30%, and then a lot of them for 50 and 60. In fact, the program is built around the 50, 60% area median income. That you can look in the code that's been around for a long time. But that's where most of your rents are driving, you're paying your perm debt down. So if you have too many 30%, you're not gonna make enough money to actually make it affordable. So you have to have a nice mixed income blend of 30, 50s, and 60s. And in some areas, and I'm not here, but they've kind of, I don't think they've disincentivized this year, but they have made it to where they want the credits to go more to affordable units. Used to be that you could do a lot of market rate units, and have a real mixed income blend where you have like 20% market rate and then the rest, 80% affordable. They don't typically do that as much because construction costs just, makes it almost impossible to build all of those market rate units using just tax credits that you can't do. I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Okay.
How do people get on this list? This may be a personal question.
Well, I can say this. On at Interfaith, at least in Houston, when we were building, even post Harvey and things like that, there's over 15,000 seniors that need a place to live, and they lease up like that. I think when you have a market study that shows, and we do out here, that has a demand for about 1,500 or 2,000 new units for elderly, age restricted, they're gonna lease up quickly. You don't have to do a lot of marketing, but when we do, and we open the doors for something that's brand new, it hasn't been around for a while, there's a wait list typically. And it really is driven by their income structure. But we do market, that's part of what we do, and we are very specific about what we're marketing to because it's age restricted. But once seniors move in, it takes a little bit of time to lease up, but they're usually static. They stay there for a very long time, which is great because, you want to develop that connection. That's what an elderly property typically is like. Takes a little bit longer to lease up, but then they stay for very long, which is great.
So one of the questions that I have that I intend to ask everyone, particularly yours with the senior restrictions, have you had any discussions with Brazos Transit about going to various locations in town, specifically like the senior center? Our senior center used to be located in my ward, but now it's been moved onto Austin Street, and we've had some discussions with Brazos Transit about getting people from the senior village that's on Harris Street over to the new senior center. Have you had any of those discussions, and what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, no to the discussions at this point, but my thoughts are, and this is how it always is at our properties, is we actually have a contracted van, a van service. We'll take seniors to church, we'll take them to the grocery store, we'll take them to libraries, we'll take them to the senior centers. That's just what we do. In fact, there's such a lower impact of traffic because people ride share and they actually do a lot of things together. Not all seniors are driving cars, but some of them do, a lot of them do. But if they want to take advantage of that van, we can do that. And that's one of the things that we provide. So I hope that helps because it's something that I think you have to build into your budget, and you definitely just say yes to. And we're going to have a van service at either one of these properties just because of the location. And the scoring is big with how far away some of these are this year with the tie break. So when it comes down to the tie break distance that you have, we know that we're a little bit further out in the southeast from a grocery store. So we want to offer that service to our seniors, church, library, things like that too.
So that actually brings up an interesting question about your two specifically. We had discussions in our workshop last week about those locations as they relate to the traffic in those areas. So have y'all discussed that within your group about what it looks like with the number of cars that you anticipate and how they'll impact not just the traffic, but how the traffic will impact getting onto the loop or getting onto East Main Street?
Yeah, we typically don't engage a traffic study until we know that we're moving through all of the other parts. I mean, this is a preliminary piece right now. I think that from what we've looked at in the past, that the traffic study that we've done, or that just preliminarily, has been low impact. Mostly because the way we operate senior properties, we don't see a lot of traffic. We just don't see a lot of movement. We don't see a lot of cars coming and going at those hours when you typically would think most people are driving, things of that nature too. So in our experience, we don't see a big impact. But we'd be happy to do a traffic study, do a preliminary one, show it to you guys, keep it going as we move through the process. We have third-party reports that we have to do over the next month before we go to TDHCA with this application. Phase 1 studies, feasibility reports for engineering, and all of that stuff we could incorporate in there if that would help you, and we could do that for you too.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What is the value of the building? I mean, for our tax rolls, or what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I need to make sure I get out of the urban area with my head. I think out here, you're probably looking at something that'll be about $15 million or $16 million. I don't know off the top of my head how much the property taxes are on that, but usually in our models, that's we're well over $100,000 in property taxes these days per year. It just depends on where we're at.
Based on your expertise, if we approve one of these, what do you think our chances are?
Against Lufkin, I did a general look at that. I don't think right now, and I can say this publicly, I don't see it on the agenda down there. I don't know when they're gonna vote. I think this vote determines kind of what some of the developers might do down there. But I do know that their highest score based on the TDHCA log is a non-age restricted family development that scores higher than both of my applications. And I would say that if you support our applications, that we would come in second and third behind them, but they haven't supported anything yet, so I can't really speak for that city. But we are, similar to how we've been in the past maybe year or two, we're stuck behind Lufkin in terms of how they do the tiebreaker. And that's just a metric of distance, cumulative distance. Quite frankly, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it is what we do for TDHCA. So I would say right now tonight, if you approve us, our chance is 50-50. I wish I could say better than that, but I probably shouldn't. Any other questions for me? It's a pleasure being here. I love coming up here. I think I might move. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is Elm Grove.
You're on B2, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just making sure. So I'm Jake Mooney with JCM Ventures, and I provided that packet that has information about what we're proposing. Everybody that's here in front of you tonight, I'm sure would develop a quality development, that's gonna serve the community well. I think the way that we're different is that we're actually in front of Lufkin in the scoring process. So our tiebreaker is a better score than the one that's in Lufkin. So if we get approved, I'm not gonna say it's better than 50-50 either, because, we're dealing with state agencies. And there's always things that come up or issues you might have. But if you score the properties, we would actually be number one in the region, Lufkin number two, and then the other developments would follow in that kind of third, fourth ranking. But what I'm proposing here is a development that with a building type that I've used before. I also own the management company. I am the guarantor, I'm the owner, I'm the developer. I've done 31 developments, 14 in Texas, and never sold the property. So still own every one that I've developed since I started the development company in 2008. And I don't know if you remember what was happening in 2008, but I'd tell people I started a real estate company, and they'd pause and wait for the punchline. And but I believe in this program. I believe in this program because I grew up on food stamps. I grew up on free lunch programs. I grew up, my dad's an airplane mechanic, still is. And so the only thing he gave me was his name, and that's the only thing I'm not willing to sacrifice. So, you know, when I say I'm gonna do something, that's what I do, and if you call around to any community, I think that's what they'll say, good, bad, and ugly. You know, I do what I say I'm gonna do. So, like I said, anybody that comes up here and is presenting, you know, they're all professional developers, they're all gonna provide a quality product. We also use stone, use hardy type siding. You know, we do the stainless steel, we do islands, we do, when you drive by a development, whether it's ours or one of the other ones, it looks probably better than most of the market rate developments that you would see in town. And I think the way that we're different is we're general occupancy. So I'm really looking for housing for the workforce. I'm looking for, you know, housing for people that are, you know, have the jobs in town. And you know, we sit on the Brazos transit line. We're right there. You know, that loop provides access to hundreds and hundreds of jobs that are right at the doorstep. You know, a lot of the other things that were mentioned by the previous presenter, I echo, as far as, you know, rents and, you know, the length of time you're gonna own it. You know, I actually own the general contractor too, but we don't self-perform anything. So we do work closely with EDC, different trade groups in town to try to find folks because, you know, just like the previous presenter mentioned, construction costs are going up, and if people are factoring into the price driving from out of town, you know, it usually drives up the price of you know, your costs in construction. But, you know, we're typically spending around $150,000 to $170,000 a unit is what we're spending on each unit. So that allows you balconies and, you know, washers and dryers provided in the units and full appliance packages. And, you know, we do a community room with on-site management, on-site maintenance, workout rooms, playgrounds, you know, focusing kind of more again on the young families, you know, people that you hope have a job here, maybe can't afford a house right away, but you can be in the community and grow and then hopefully move out. You know, our goal isn't to have tenants live there for 15 years. Our goal is to help people establish themselves, grow up in the community, and then maybe buy that house. You know, you can actually increase your income. If you qualify your first year, you can actually increase your income fairly substantially year over year and still re-qualify. So it's not like the old, you know, programs of old where, you know, an employee says, well, don't give me that raise because I'm gonna lose my housing. You know, so you can actually better yourself and you know, start to save and become more than just a tenant at the apartment complex. Maybe you become a homeowner, maybe you become a business owner. So, you know, that's our focus, or my focus is on the families, young families. I've been on nonprofits that serve young families and kids. I've got a foundation that I use to support programs in the communities I develop in. You know, I think that the kind of cyclical pattern of poverty is really only changed by affecting the lives of children. And if you provide a quality place for someone to live, you know, a kid doesn't know whether they're rich or poor when they're young. You know, I had no idea until I was older because my house looked just like, you know, the neighbor's house and the other friend's house. And so, you know, you can change minds of young people when they grow up in something that's built with a, you know, high standard of quality and in the right location that provides that opportunity to grow. So, you know, I'm available for questions and you know, echo what the previous presenter said is, you know, a lot of those same things apply to everybody that's here. You know, I think you're gonna get, if you get any one of the four, you're gonna get a good quality development for the city. We just happen to this year be in that kind of first place position right now. So I do know the second place developer. I know that they'll get their support. They've developed in Lufkin before. So, you know, I would say support them all, but, you know, not supporting ours is pretty much sending the money to Lufkin. So that's where I'm at, I guess.
How do you get, like, you said you want families, young families and stuff. How do you know when you're getting a young family or you're getting just a college student? Because you're going to be close to SFA.
So college students actually don't qualify for affordable housing. And then we'll go through we'll take usually a 4-to-1 ratio of applications. So if we have, if we have 100 units, we're gonna take 400 applications to fill that 100 units because we're doing, past renter experience checks, credit checks, criminal checks, to make sure that, the person we're getting in there is a quality tenant. So like a college student doesn't qualify.
Okay.
Yeah. So same thing with military. It's kind of the way that the program was set up. They said, well, there's programs for college students, there's programs for the military. We don't want to be a program that subsidizes those groups. So that's the way that is.
Okay, thank you.
How much is the value of what you're proposing?
So the value of the development in a market rate environment is about the same as what was previously mentioned. On tax rolls, it ends up getting back down because we're basically using these tax credits to buy down the basis of a development. So, usually we're spending about, that kind of $100,000 a year in property taxes. But the value of that assessed value is usually around $3 or $4 million.
And you're in Kansas, is it?
Yep, I'm out of Kansas City.
Out of Kansas City. And you're a for-profit?
I am.
Organization. Okay. Thanks. That's my
Okay.
three questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do have one. You were talking about the vetting process. So as a developer, help me understand how that would compare to just a regular run-of-the-mill market rate. You want to try and get an apartment. What does that process look like, and sort of compare the two?
So when the program was created in basically 1987 to replace the old Section 8 program, the problem was there wasn't a lot of responsibility on the land, on the landlord. And so what this new program does is it puts, falls under Section 42, it gives the landowner or the landlord the same rights pretty much as a typical market rate development. So, if we got a 3-strike rule. If you have somebody over there that's been there longer than they're allowed to, you can be there no longer than, you can't have a guest for longer than 7 consecutive days or 14 days over a 30-day period without approval. And if there is somebody that's there, they have to also go through the qualification and background check process. Nothing that's sexual in nature, even if it's a misdemeanor, passes the management company, or abuse or physical, they're automatically kicked out. We will work with local organizations. If there's somebody who, got a DUI or a possession 20 years ago and has been working with a local nonprofit and has proven to be on that kind of right track, then we'll consider that. I mean, you gotta give people a hand up. I think that's the biggest difference between this program and the old program is this is a hand up, not a handout. When we say rent's $800 a month, we as the developers don't have a mechanism to cover that rent if the tenant can't afford it. So you're qualifying somebody on that top end of what they can make, but also there's an affordability. They have to be able to afford, that development. Because if somebody comes in and says, I've got a 60% AMI unit and rent's $800 a month, and they say, well, I can only afford $200, there's no mechanism that the developer has to say, well, I'll make up the difference or Uncle Sam will. So, it's not, that's where a Section 8 based program does have that mechanism, which these deals do not. So we don't have any project-based rental assistance.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So
Okay.
if just one last question. So if a low-income apartment, which is subsidized, comes in, does that keep just a regular apartment developer out of town? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
In other words, if you build your apartment, is that, which gets some subsidies, is that gonna keep somebody that's just a business person here that wanted to build apartments, is that gonna lower their expectations or?
No, so from an appraisal standpoint, if you were to come in and do it's actually, you're not allowed to use a rent subsidy property as a comparison for a market rate property.
Okay.
So it wouldn't affect the value from an underwriting perspective from a lender, But, you know, the demand is so great that, you know, we're gonna do the same study and it's gonna show the town needs 2,000 units.
Oh, okay.
And so when we're doing 60 or 70 or 80 units, you're talking about satisfying less than 5% of the demand. And like I said, you know, when we turn away that, for a 100-unit deal, if we turn away 300 people, you know, there's gonna be, you know, I'd say 30 to 50%, depending on the market, of those people we turn away that are just barely over income qualifying. That's why we do some market rate units in the development, is because there will be people that need the help or need the hand up, but maybe the over income qualify by $1,000, you know? So we want to be able to help those folks out too. But there's going to be a lot of people that show up, see a nice new, brand new apartment and go, hey, I want to move in. And, you know, they'll way over income qualify. And so, you know, we're serving different segments of the market.
Okay.
I think is the,
Yeah, yeah.
to make a long story long.
Okay, cool.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is B4, Garden Walk. Anybody here from Garden Walk? Okay. We'll move along, and that was just the presentations. We'll move to item 6C. Discuss and consider resolutions of support, no opposition or denial for developers applying for Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs 2022 competitive 9% low-income housing tax credit program.
It's a mouthful, isn't it? Council members, you have three resolutions in your packet for each one of these developments. And just like the agenda item says, there's a resolution of support, a resolution of no opposition, and a resolution of opposition, essentially. You also have the option of taking no action for any one of these. And just a reminder, each one of these items is completely distinct from the other three, so you can take any one of these four actions for any one of these four agenda items.
And at the same time, do we need to have, what is it, $250?
Yes, the resolution of support does contain, in order for it to be, if you do choose to support one of these developments, in order to receive the max, and I'll happy to turn it over to one of these gentlemen to better explain it, but in order to receive the maximum award, essentially, or points from TDHCA, the resolution does say that you are waiving a value of at least $250 in permit fees.
And does that need to be stated in the resolution?
It's in the resolution of support. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, open for discussion.
Well, I don't mind starting. I think we do have a huge need for housing for seniors, and I've seen it personally. I really give preference to nonprofits who hold their properties, provide social services, their own transportation, community, and retaining ownership and management of the property. So I'm ready to make a motion if there's not. I don't know if you have other.
I have a question for Ms. Philpott, which maybe you can answer. Do we have an idea? We've talked a little bit about the demand for housing. Do we have any hard numbers on any of that?
Not that I can spout off the top of my head, unfortunately. I could bring you something later based on some census data and just contacting apartment managers to see what their vacancy rate is. Anecdotally, I can tell you just from experiences, for example, from our own city manager, we don't have a great number of rental properties for folks, new professionals that are in transition, trying to find a new home. We have been told by developers and by realtors in the area that we do have a need for more multifamily living units. And Rick is gonna join.
And if an apartment was the only option, I wouldn't have come.
Sorry, but just,
I'm just saying. I've been in apartments 2 different times, and nothing makes you work harder to get out of an apartment like being in an apartment.
I don't have a good metric for you tonight.
Thank you.
I think we saw, I think Mr. Michaels provided some date, I can't remember, last year when we were talking about it on senior. Do you have, Mr. Michaels, do you have any?
Speak real quick. Again, for the record, I'm Mr. Michaels from Interfaith. Each one of our developments will have a market study. We did a market study the last 2 years now, and there's, at least for seniors, there's at least a demand for 1,500, 1,600 new units that we know just at the affordable side. I can't speak to market rate really, but any colleague of mine that would be doing a non-age restricted development, they too would have to get that market study done. So in the next few weeks when those things start to come up, in fact, you could probably pull a preliminary study from the third-party group that does that. They will have that for their full application, so you'll be able to see that. It'll all be available.
I just remember seeing something last year and the year before.
And I can
at
send
least
what,
for
I can send
elderly.
along with ours, you know, what we had last year too, if that would help.
Mr. Mooney, do
Mayor?
you have similar data?
Okay.
Do you have similar data?
Yeah, we all do,
Yeah.
we all do the same type of, market studies. You know, our market study will just be a little bit different in that it won't stop at age 55. You know, so we'll take in the need for the full age range. So, you know, typically for a general occupancy development, you're gonna have even more demand, because we have the ability to lease to folks in their 20s, 30s, 40s. So any demand that for a general occupancy development is gonna be typically greater than senior, so.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, we can also lease to seniors, it doesn't stop. So.
I'm in support of especially low-income housing for seniors, especially in my quadrant. There's a lot of low-income senior citizens in my ward that doesn't own a home like they thought they did. And they're being moved from place to place, not of their own. They don't want it, but they have to. So, especially in my ward, we are in need of low-income housing for senior citizens. And as for the young tenant, I remember when I had a need for housing, but I couldn't afford to move into a house at that stage. And the apartment really came in handy. We saved, but we eventually moved out. So I'm in support of both of those.
Is there any, I mean, we don't really know if anything will be built, is that right?
That's right. You just give in a letter of support, and then they run. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay, so I'd like to make the motion that we provide a resolution of support for Pine Creek Senior Village in Mr. Bolden's ward, and along with the $250 waiver of fees. That's item CI.
Second?
That's, okay, great. Second.
Okay, have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that one will get a letter of support, right? Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Chad.
I just have been, this is my second time to go through this. I don't remember if we had any for-profits last year, did we?
Yes.
We did?
Did?
Proposal. It's not,
Yeah,
not this one.
right. I guess I didn't recognize that the sort of vetting requirements that existed across the board. I didn't realize that they were as strenuous as they are. I had previously, certainly agree with the nonprofit, Mr. Michaels. You've made a good presentation for 3 years now. But after reflection, I think that the one on University wouldn't be a bad thing either, because I know there is a significant housing need in our community. So that's my opinion.
The reason, just since we're talking about nonprofit versus profit, there's $900,000. I like that $900,000 to go back into the communities. And that's the difference. For our profit, the $900,000 goes to, it may go partly to a foundation or it may go to other things, but it,
No, I agree with that.
that's my.
Okay. Excuse me, sorry. We'll just take number 2. We'll just go down each one of them. Any motion? No action? Okay. Number 3? Any support? No action? Okay. Number 4? Any support? No action? Okay, 2, 3, and 4, no action. 1 will get a letter of support from the city of Nacogdoches. All right, we'll move along to item 6D. Receive the 2023 racial profiling report. Chief Weems.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor, council, I'm Scott Weems. I'm your police chief. And I will present the 2023 racial profiling report. So I know this was probably given out to you a week ago at least, 10 days, is that right? Enough time to look over it?
Last Wednesday.
Okay, well, I was gonna hit the highlights.
Okay.
That's good.
And then open it up for questioning. So basically, this report is mandated by the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure 2.132B7, and it's to be submitted to our governmental body. And that's what we did. We submitted it, but we decided we would present it every year, so that's why we're here to do a presentation. And I turn it into TCOLE, which is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, on January the 22nd, and they accepted it. So, I included a few details that are not really pertinent. They're pertinent to my report, but TCOLE does not require it. But we'll get to the actual numbers. So our numbers, our total stops last year, or this year compared to last year, increased. The total number is 9,214. And out of that total number, there was 811 known race or ethnicity, and then 8,403 unknown. And so that could vary between, they can just see somebody going by checking a sticker and see who it was. But out of 9,000 plus, 811 is very minor, so very few. And we'll go to, I got them checked here. We'll get to the meat of the matter, which was the search conducted. So,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you know what, I forget that every
yeah,
year.
okay. Could we go back to the first chart?
Yes,
Thank you.
that
Okay.
one? That's our demographics that I got from
The minor
Larissa.
stops.
Yeah, it's at the top. Location of stop, total 99,214 in the gray area above the blue line.
Right.
Okay.
But the total stops and the percentage wise.
Yes, sir. Okay. So, on the percentage, I'll just read it off of this.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that it was minor, not many yeses, but 9%
Right.
of knowing the person, race,
Right.
ethnic group or whatever.
Right, 9% out of, well,
Yeah,
811.
I know what you're saying, but that is quite a small number.
Right, it is.
Yeah. It's almost like most of them was done at night. You couldn't see inside the car.
No, this is actually, when they're speeding, it depends on what type of traffic stop it is. So if you're setting up, watching a slower area, checking inspection sticker or registration stickers and checking for speed, more than likely you can see who's driving the car, at least the ethnicity.
Right.
And so here's what this tells me, that we're not just checking the box saying, no, I didn't see who it was. It's, yes, I'm honest, and I'm gonna say I know exactly who was driving that car, what ethnicity was driving that car, and I checked that box. So that's what it's telling me. I understand where you're coming from, but again, 91% of them are not known. So if you're working a loop,
That's a high
I know we
number.
talked about
Yeah.
this before. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell. And actually, if you're working some of these state highways, speed limit's a little faster also, and it's hard to tell.
But we're speaking of city limits, inside the city limits.
Well, we do have the state highways with higher speed limits in the city limits.
But wouldn't you say most of your stops are on like North Street, University, and et cetera?
Right. So if you're behind somebody and their tail light's defective or whatever it is, you're not gonna know the race.
You know, back in the day when they had the old type of Ford, whatever that, the biggest maintenance problem they had was making a U-turn, go back and put flashing lights on that person.
Right.
So the majority of stops back then was where they was facing that person. And that tells me that's a lot different than what these numbers are.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that today's time, you got more tinted windows, they come
yeah.
out of the factory darker than they used to be. And
But
I've tried it, but I'm getting up in age and I really can't, I can't tell.
well, that might be one of my questions is.
Now, we do
Well,
have the
yeah,
young
I
officers out there that
understand
may be
that,
better.
but
That may be
yeah.
part of that 811.
Yeah, I
Depends
mean,
on their
with
age.
that number, I would like to ask if that was a number bothered anyone within the administration group of the police department, and if they actually go out and do a visual check themselves.
Well, I know this, we do checks as far as, we watch the videos, the in-car videos, and if we see a pattern, we call the officer in. If there's an issue that we think might be happening, we call that officer in and they have to explain it. And so we do our in-house checks. Now, as far as going out, I could go out during the day and try to see 10 cars and see if I can tell the difference. And again, for the most part, I can't. So, depending on what roadway I'm on, and depending on the speed limit, and depending on the type of light.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Oh, well, no, I already knew the answer, but I was just, I don't agree with the answer.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, I know you had got out and did a little research a year or so ago, and knew it was a little more difficult than you thought it was.
It was, and it depends on what street you was on.
Right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
it made a big difference.
So, all right,
I think you said that before, but the windows, there are more windows tinted now.
they are.
Even on new cars and stuff
Right.
like that.
Coming out of the factory there, they have a darker tint than they used to.
And it seems like there's more reflective to me. You know, we sit out in the yard and I can't tell most of the people driving by. I can't even see them, to be
Right.
honest, so.
They don't tint the windshield.
Well, I'm not in front of them, I'm in the side there, but
You're not a policeman.
I'm going to police academy though. So I'm gonna do it. That was a great movie.
All right. Any more questions on the,
No, I'm good.
okay, thank you, sir. And I'll remember to use this often. All right, so, we went through the reason for the stop, violation of law and pre-existing knowledge, moving traffic violation, vehicle traffic violation. Now, we're getting to, was a search conducted? And so, as far as a search being conducted, I'll jump through it. The top two are really very minor. And so we'll get to the 455, that's 50% that were black that were searched, and 28.81% white that were searched, and then 20% that were Hispanic. And so, as I've told y'all in the past, there's different reasons for conducting a search. And so that's why we came up with this PowerPoint. So consent, that's going up and asking, hey, do you mind if I search your vehicle? Well, out of the previous numbers, 94% black, or 37.75% black said we got consent. 34% white and 26% Hispanic. And now the thing that I keep harping on every year is probable cause, and that's, for some of y'all that are new, probable cause is if you go up, you see it, you smell it, however you know that there's something illegal in this vehicle, that is probable cause to go ahead and search. So out of that, 315 were black, 119 were white, and 85 were Hispanic. And so the rest of them are inventory, plain view, there's really nebulous plain view contraband, and incident to arrest. Those are all kind of nebulous numbers. Your main ones are your probable cause and your consent. That's what leads to your highest percentage rate. And so before I change this one, is there any questions on this particular slide?
Could you explain inventory?
Inventory is when we tow a vehicle, and it doesn't have to necessarily be an arrest, it's just an inventory of the vehicle for our purposes, our security purposes. And so we would find some kind of contraband during the inventory.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
And just a comment, 3 times more that blacks have probable cause than whites, and white and Hispanic are even a lot less added together than blacks are.
Correct,
Am I
according to the
correct
numbers.
in making that statement?
You are, according to the numbers, yes, sir. Because of probable cause. Probable cause, we can't change that. That is something that when we walk up and we either see it, smell it, or what have you, that initiates the search. So that's, we're kind of stuck with that if we want law and order, basically.
Could we go back one slide?
Is that the one?
The one that says pre-existing knowledge.
Okay, did I hit the wrong button?
There it was.
This one?
No,
No,
it says,
no, go forward one more. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
What are we speaking of here? Did we know this person, or he's been arrested before and we recognize him?
This is 59 out of all of them, and these are different variations as far as the reasoning. Either the car had some kind of tag issue, or the person driving the car, if we did see them, might have a warrant, and we know that already. This could be a myriad of reasons, but out of it, there was only 59 of them, so.
But basically, when you say pre-existing knowledge, you're saying you most likely has interacted with that person before.
Either the person or, like I said, the car. The car could have been.
Car can be
If we ran the license plate and the license plate came back expired or stolen, what have you, then
Gotcha.
that's pre-existing knowledge to make the traffic stop, to conduct whatever, search, arrest, what have you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
Go forward to that other the one that had the multiple rows. Keep going. That
Okay.
one. So, and this is kind of, I guess, as you would go down the funnel of consent, probable cause, contraband, and anything you would miss. Am I reading this right? That even though you got a lower percentage of white on consent and then probable cause, and even, well, a little bit higher with white than Hispanic on Plainview, if you get an opportunity to inventory, you then pick up a higher percentage on that.
Right.
Just like anything else. So in the order of all of the ways you might search, then you pick that back up
Right.
on that.
And
If-
also incident to arrest the next one.
So that then becomes so then that becomes the highest percentage when you get to that inventory
Right,
phase.
those two categories are basically when you get through with the other, and you're about to make an arrest, the incident to arrest, you find contraband on the person. The inventory, you find contraband inside the vehicle. So, if that answers your question.
And then, so I would assume then maybe the number to also look at is all the way down the line by the time you get to
Pretty much,
your
one
ultimate,
leads to
your
the other.
ultimate number.
Well, either you get consent, probable cause, or it's in plain view. And once you start the arrest process or the search process, then it leads to the inventory and the incident to arrest. We're good? Okay. Contraband discovered. So out of all of these, then we go to contraband discovered, and the numbers are 341 for black, 183 for white, and 127 for Hispanic. And so 653 times we discovered contraband. And did they result in an arrest? Yes, only 141 times. So it depends on the contraband. So not all contraband is an arrestable offense. So you'll see that later. It'll be alcohol, which is citations. It'll be, if it's drugs, we have the opportunity to issue a citation or a summons to appear in county court in lieu of going to jail. So that could be included also. So that's why the numbers are different, and you can see we have chosen to use that at least more than 500 times, so. Because they didn't go to jail every time, so, from the contraband. Any questions on that one? All right, and again, there's the description of the contraband and broken down into the numbers. We get drugs, currency, weapons, alcohol, stolen property, and other. And so the currency is very few. We get that usually on the loop, and it's usually money laundering tied to drug-related offenses. And the drugs, we get a lot of that in town. So that's what we're doing to try to clean the community up. And then the alcohol, we'll get that on juveniles, we'll get it on DUIs, open containers. So really the contraband, it can vary from the smallest open container to $120,000 in currency that's being hauled to Houston to buy drugs. So, any questions on that one? Okay. And then this just breaks it down to the result of the stop as verbal warning, written warning, citation, a written warning and an arrest, a citation and an arrest total, and then the arrest. So basically the numbers, we do a lot of verbal and written warnings, as you can see. We do a third of the stops of the 9214 are written citations, and then sometimes those citations lead into an arrest, which you'll find with a citation and arrest. And then some of them are written warnings that lead into an arrest. We had to include verbal warnings in there also because we didn't have a category for that. Any questions on that one? I think that's the same percentages that were on the previous slide, so. And that's the totals on the arrest based on the violation of penal code, traffic law, city ordinance, and outstanding warrants. And so we're gonna have to talk about the violation of city ordinance. Most of the time, they're not arrestable offenses, therefore that's why they're zeroed out. So most of them are citable. Any questions on that one? And physical force resulting in bodily injury during the traffic stop, 0. All 9214 did not result in bodily injury to either the suspect or the officer. They asked for both. And then the bottom one, it is, did it happen to both? So thankfully that did not happen this year, and we hope it doesn't happen in this current year. And we had one complaint of racial profiling, and what that was about was an officer was behind a truck who had a expired registration. He ran the tag, he pulled the driver over, did not know the race or ethnicity, and once he confronted the driver, made the contact, there was just verbal altercation between the driver and the officer. The officer handled it well. Come to find out, the sheriff's department had been dealing with the same guy for mental health issues over and over and over. And it just kind of, I guess, when the officer pulled him over, it just started back. And so when we did the research, we watched the video. The officer had no way of knowing the race of the occupant. And when he made contact, the altercation started, and it didn't stop. He handled it, like I said, professionally. Let him move on. We checked his history. The mental history came out, and that's where we're at. So anybody can file anything, but that's why we have to do our due diligence and investigate every case. So any questions on that one?
Is that still active?
No, that's been closed due to other factors. And that's the summary. And like I said, we like to present it to council just so you can advise your constituents what we're doing as a police department. And also, we want to be transparent and open up for any questions that y'all may have, so. that's
Scott,
where we're at.
I'll just make a statement. You know, it's a shame that anybody should get a citation, be arrested, or whatever. Anybody break the law, it happens. You know, your job is to protect and serve. And I'd like to commend your department on an excellent job. You've been shot at this year.
Yes, sir.
You live and work in a very, very stressful job, and you know, you may or may not know who you're pulling over. I mean, it's hard to see, like you say, what's in the car now. And but just based on the information that we have here, I couldn't be more prouder of a department than Nacogdoches Police Department, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you all. And I'm glad you brought that point up. You're absolutely right. That officer, when he pulled that car over after the short pursuit, he had no idea what was going on or how many people were in the car because of the tinted windows, and he had no idea what movements were happening because he couldn't see in the car. And so he retreated to the back of his patrol car, and as soon as he did, that passenger door opened up, and they shot 15 rounds in less than 2 seconds at him, hit him in his portable and in his vest. Yeah, so that's what we don't know, and that's what we can't see.
Right.
So Chief, can you go back 2 slides, please?
Right there?
No, sorry. Yes, 2 slides, that was it.
Okay.
That bottom, or that whole thing, no injuries, and we're fortunate that that is the case.
Right.
And I'll echo the mayor's comments and say thank you to you and all of the men and women in your department, and we can't thank you enough for keeping us safe.
Thank you.
So, well, you know, I echo those same sentiments, but I also, particularly in this report, I really appreciate you and the whole police department going above and beyond and giving us information that's not required in order to be transparent. So, thank you all, in addition to all the other things. Really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it allows us to, I've had last year's report and this year's report side by side comparing, and it looks like we're actually doing better this year.
We are, and I guess I forgot to mention that, but our traffic stops increased, but so did our staff. Our numbers in our staff increased. Now, I can't say that presently, and we've had that discussion, and I'll leave it at that. But as we increase our staff, so will our numbers, our traffic numbers, and our proactive enforcement. So it's vital that we keep our numbers up and do everything we can to keep law and order. So, and with your help, and I think we can do this. I think we can get back on board, and we'll talk about this later when we have time.
Chief, I have two relatives, I have 2 nephews that are policemen
Yes, sir.
in Houston. I tell them all
God
the
bless 'em.
time that I could not be a policeman.
Well, I don't know if I could right now in Houston. I just don't have I used to be pretty spry, but that's waning. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a fear night and day for them.
it is.
You know, because I know my daughter always call them just see how they doing.
Right.
But, you know, it's a fear every day.
It is.
You have to be a special type person to be a policeman.
Nowadays, you're actually, that makes a whole lot more sense than I thought it did last for 10 years or 20 years. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief Williams. Okay, we'll go to item 6E. Consider approval of the January boards and commissions appointments, namely the Airport Advisory Board, Building Standards Commission, Health Code Advisory Board, Industrial Development Authority, Nacogdoches Cemetery Board, and Main Street Advisory Board. I'll go through here and I'll call out the board and give you the nominations, and then if we can accept a motion on each particular board. We'll start with the Airport Advisory Board. Nominations are Will Alders, Ricky Jones, Kelly Radnigzer, who fill an unexpired term until January of 2025, Taylor Jones, and Kathy Parton. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept those nominations.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next one will be Building Standards Commission. These are 2-year terms. First nomination is Jake Crawford as an alternate. Second is Brandon Lee Rowell as an alternate. Steve Crory as a regular member. Travis Davis as a regular member. John Wyndham as a regular member. And Sally Ann Swearingen as a regular member.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the appointments to the Building Standards Commissions as you stated.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is Health Code Advisory Board. This is a 3-year term. Nominee is Michelle Klein.
I make the motion that we approve the nomination of Michelle Klein to the Health Code Advisory Board.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is the Industrial Development Authority, 3-year term. Nominee is Robert Flores.
I make a motion that we approve Robert Flores as member of the Industrial Development Authority.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next board is Nacogdoches Cemetery Board. These are 2-year terms. First nominee is White Ordray. Next one's Betty Davis Jacobs, Beauregard Patton, and LaShonda Maxey.
I make a motion to approve the names as they have been read for the Nacogdoches Cemetery Board.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next board is Main Street Advisory Board. These are 3-year terms. Nominees are Janie Huggins, Bailey McLean, Antonia Sanchez, and Holly Atherton.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the appointments to the Main Street Advisory Board as presented.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item. Item F, consider approval of a contract by and between the City of Nacogdoches and Schomburg and Polk for professional engineering services on ARPA sewer improvements in a not-to-exceed amount of $90,560. Case.
Evening, Mayor, City Council, Case Hopperman, Director of Public Works, City Engineer. As you'll remember, we received just over $8 million in ARPA funds, and we've reallocated that to other needs, including storm drainage, with y'all approved a engineering contract a couple months ago actually with Schomburg and Polk as well. Schomburg and Polk was one of 2 of our selected consultants when we went out for qualifications for these ARPA projects. And the current contract is for sanitary sewer line improvements. The construction of these would be on a line replacement on North Street, and then hopefully also on Chestnut, Pinecrest, and Kent. Those would be basically additive alternate bid items, because we don't know how far this money's gonna go when we go to actual construction. So we decided to do it as a additive alternate kind of system, with the North Street line being our prime project. So this contract is for basically putting together all those bidding and contract documents, and then performing construction administration services for each of those projects that get awarded for construction. So the amount of this contract is just over $90,000. We do have adequate funds to fund this contract with Schomburg and Polk. So be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Case, do you know how much money we have left in that ARPA fund?
Well, unallocated, and we do have a spreadsheet on that. I don't have it in front of me. We have allocated a lot of it. We did the storm drainage projects. We have estimates on what those are gonna cost. And then we also have estimates on what these sewer lines are gonna cost. And, some other funds went to parks and water, but, we have, I think, spent maybe less than $100,000 of it. It needs to be allocated by the end of this year, which sounds scary, but the good news is, with this contract, with the prior storm drainage contract that's already in place, with most of these lines already being designed, we're looking at a very short time frame, hopefully, for getting these things actually out to bid, where we can allocate the majority of those monies within the next few months, hopefully.
Okay, so there was $8 million, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so we still have $8 million to spend.
About.
Okay, yes, no, okay, I'm good.
Who picks the projects that you've chosen?
Well, we looked at what would make the most sense. We had, with storm drainage and with with sanitary sewer, we had probably a dozen combined projects that we had designed under previous contracts over the past years or two. With the drainage projects, we didn't have the money to actually take them to construction, so we've just kind of had them ready to go for the past year or two. And then for the sanitary sewer lines like these, a lot of these were designed under a previous grant, which was well before my time here, but they've kind of just been sitting on the shelf with Schaumburg, kind of unbuilt. And so we asked them to kind of resurrect what they had from some of those old, grant projects, that the money didn't go far enough to actually get all of them built. And so, we luckily had most of them at about anywhere from 70 to 90% designed already. They, under those prior contracts, basically got them to 100% to where they're almost ready to go right now.
So the flood we had whenever it was the big flood.
Yes, sir.
Did not change priorities on some of these things?
It did. I know, well, the ones that we had were already problems that we knew were identified by flooding in the past. So those had already been basically designed. The Kinbrook storm drain and the Colonial Drive storm drain were two projects that were identified for basically as a priority for the storm drainage money, which y'all approved a couple months ago, maybe into last year. But we're always, adding projects to our list of needed improvement areas with every storm we get and with every issue that we see that arises.
Went to Parks and, you said Parks and Water, what is that?
There's about, I think, $1.5 million for water. We've got another contract to bring to y'all for KSA, who was our other, I talked about Schaumburg being one of our selected consultants. KSA was our other one. And KSA has a water line on Power Street that we need to get built. It's a transmission main from well 4 into our pump station by our utility construction office. And we're hoping right in that ballpark for getting that, about $1 million, $1.2 million or so, hopefully. We got about $1.5 million to spend on water. Parks didn't have near that much, I think maybe $4,000 or something like that. And if I'm not mistaken, they use that to, I think, demolish and I may be speaking incorrectly, but I think I was told they use that to demolish the existing bathroom at next to the dog park at Bonita Park. So that 4,000 they have already utilized.
Okay.
We need a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the contract, as stated in item, good grief, where are we?
If.
6F. Thank you.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 6G, consider the purchase of a BME Model 34 Type 3 wildland fire engine from the Sidmans Martin Emergency Group for the amount of $458,881. Chief Brown.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you? Should have a very brief PowerPoint for this one. Forgive me.
No, that's okay.
You'll get
I
used to
couldn't
it.
do anything.
See, they're way ahead of me. Thank you. So tonight, again, we're asking that you consider the purchase of a new wildland apparatus for us. And I'll be short and sweet tonight, touching on the purpose of a Type 3 apparatus. This is a medium-sized wildland fire engine. It's not a little tiny brush truck that, is pickup-based, but it's not a big classic fire engine like one of our pumpers would be. It's a four-wheel drive vehicle capable of carrying 4 to 5 crew members with a tank capacity of about 500 gallons. These are a little different than your standard pumper that we would use to attack a structure fire. Their pumps are designed to push relatively small amounts of water at very high pressures, a very, very long distance. As you can imagine, sometimes in the wildland arena, we have to have hose lays that are very long. Those pressures get very high. This particular apparatus does have the capability of pumping up to 500 GPM, which is a substantial amount of water, but it's really designed for that small amount of water to be pushed a very long way where we can go way off in the woods. The current Type 3 that this would be replacing in our fleet is a 1994 Ford F800. This truck has 132,000 miles on it, over that. At the time that we acquired it through a grant from TIFMAS, the Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System, which is a mouthful. That was a refurbished unit that had been donated by the U.S. Forest Service. In fact, if you open it up to this day and look inside, it's a horrendous shade of green. So they had used that for a number of years, donated it to us, did have a minor refurb, and then the state gave that to us under a grant. The main issue with this truck is age, end of service life. It's 30 years old. We have limped along for quite a long time with this truck. It's been a great truck, but we are struggling mightily with parts. We are one major component away from that vehicle being sidelined. Per our suppliers, I think last year, the rear end blew up while on deployment. We got the last extant rear end in the United States of America that fit that truck. You can have them custom made, but you're gonna exceed greatly the value of that truck at this point. So the replacement Type 3, this is a stock photo, but it is representative of the type of apparatus that we would be seeking. It's a commercial design, exceedingly common. That's an international truck. Tons of fire trucks based on this. We utilize similar truck in our similar chassis in our rescue truck. One of the things we really liked about this was that this is a proven design that's been utilized across the country. The Forest Service heavily uses it. CAL FIRE, who buys hundreds of these every year, uses the same type of apparatus. There's tremendous aftermarket support or market support for that available. More importantly, that design has been tweaked and tweaked and vetted, and the end product is highly desirable from our standpoint. The process that we went through is we formed a committee, firefighter led. Captain Anthony, who's back there, headed up that committee. He's our truck guy, and he's gonna bail me out if you get too technical here in a minute. We brought those firefighters together. They're experienced guys. Big emphasis on the folks that have gone out west and deployed and gone to California, West Texas, and fought wildfire. Seen a lot of fires, seen a lot of different types of engines, have a lot of experience. Those guys got together and said, this is what we'd like. And so we said, okay, let's start shopping. This particular apparatus is, I'm not going to say it's inexpensive because it's extraordinarily expensive. But because it's kind of a Henry Ford thing, you can have any color you like. If it's black, they don't allow a lot of options on this truck. And part of that is because it's been tweaked and tweaked and tweaked so many ways. Keeps the price comparatively lower. Were we to build a commensurate truck and customize it, we're looking at $150,000 to $200,000 more. So this is the product that the committee chose. I agree with it. We were able to, we originally budgeted $500,000 in the last budget, which was approved. We were able to come in under that at $458,881. That includes delivery. This truck's produced in Boise, Idaho, and they would deliver that to us, and does include some partial equipment. Some of our equipment could be reused, but not all of it. Very interesting thing to me on this is this is coming from our vehicle replacement fund. In fact, in excess of the value of that truck, even in excess of the budgeted price, we have funds available that have come through from reimbursement from the TIFMAS deployments that we do, where we send out our apparatus to help support state operations. They pay us on an hourly basis for those trucks. We've accumulated that money over time. And so effectively, this truck can be purchased entirely with those funds. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Rick, are you keeping up with all the stuff that we're under budget so we can throw it over in the file? And we don't want to know about the stuff we go over budget on. We just want to know the stuff that we're under budget.
That is something that Marty, Todd,
Yeah.
Bonita, myself talk about every day. We are working on to see how far. We also, you've got to look at it a couple of ways. Yes, we have had some salary savings on one side, but when people retire and depart, you also then have payouts of things. We've even talked about how to budget this next year. try and, you know, where Todd, is Todd still here? And myself in other places, our approach, both of us, were to you take your average of what your payouts are and budget for that as well. And so some of these different little things will give us a better handle on the over-under. But I do think our adding Todd to the mix is also gonna help us get a real handle. And one thing you've probably also seen, this is part of this, something I've done other places, contracts and tracking things in the budget. And so you'll see some things that are under 50. Obviously, things are over 50, but some things under 50 that are contract-based. Myself, Todd both, and Jerry's have all discussed this. If it is a contract for something, then that's council. If we're just buying something, say it's a flatbed, then that's a purchase. So you will see some smaller items it may appear more laborious, if I can use such a big term, or with that saying of it. But we will, we'll put those things on consent. And in the case of this, you know, you've got funding coming from others, which this is where you net out on your over and under. So we're not worried about this purchase, but we are watching things. We're watching sales tax. We are watching kind of where things will go in the larger world with ad valorem and things like that. So
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate the explanation, and not just this explanation, Rick, but the explanation of our fire trucks going out and then being are reimbursed for hourly for the equipment, and I assume also staff
Yes, ma'am.
time and.
In fact, a TIPS deployment costs the city nothing. They pay for the personnel that are deployed. They pay for any backfill up to our minimum manning requirements, and they pay for our apparatus while they're gone as well. And that's tax, title, license, benefits, the whole shooting match.
Well, I really appreciate it. And this, one other question I had is, I know it's harder now to get grants for equipment and firefighting, and I assume we're still keeping our eyes open.
And absolutely, and in fact, we are currently enrolled, the TIPS program, when it first came out, was simply pushing out new apparatus. The state has realized that that's great, but our TIFMAS apparatus are aging. We are a fortunate city that we have two TIFMAS apparatus. Both of those are in the old category per the state. We are currently enrolled and stay enrolled and at the very top tier of that selection process for that grant. And so we're monitoring that and hopeful.
Will this truck only be used on wildfires outside of,
No, sir.
so you'll be used,
Its primary mission would be here in town. It does have a secondary use for us in that because it is four-wheel drive and sets pretty tall. We would also use this in like a high water rescue type situation.
okay. I just have a little bit of a personal story, because my parents lived in West Texas during a huge fire that circled their house out in the country, and it was you guys that saved it.
Really?
So, appreciate it very much.
Outstanding.
I mean, those kind of trucks work
Yes,
in
sir.
those kind of situations. There was no water lines or anything like that.
Right.
Okay, have a motion?
Sure. I move that we approve the purchase as outlined in item 6G.
And I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes our regular session. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 regarding deliberations regarding the appointment and employment of a public officer or employee. The subject of the executive session is the position of city secretary. We will be back shortly. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, we are returning to executive session at 7:23.
Now, exactly the motion is,
Approve the appointment.
pardon? Approve the appointment, thank you. I make the motion to approve the appointment of Rhonda Lewis as the city secretary.
Second.
And, oh, should we before our vote or vote first?
No, we're gonna vote first.
Okay.
You can do that after the meeting. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
And we also just have some flowers for you and a card
Okay,
for putting up with us.
this meeting is adjourned at 7:23. God bless the great city of Nacogdoches, Texas.